Today on Coffee Roasting Legends, San Franciscan roasters Bill Kennedy speaks with Abby and Jodi from roasting headquarters.
Okay, well, welcome Abby and Jodi. I wanted to thank you guys for being part of this podcast and telling us your story and taking a minute out of your very busy world to do this. So I'm going to start off by letting you guys kind of introduce yourselves and briefly tell us about what you're doing right now together. And then later we'll get into your individual stories in the coffee world and how you guys ended up partnering together into the project that you're working on right now. So fire away. It's all yours.
Well, thanks for having us. We're excited to be part of this podcast.
Definitely. So we're the owners of Roasting Headquarters. We're in the North Dallas area, Dallas Fort Worth. And we kind of have four branches of what Roasting Headquarters is all about. So one of the big branches is consulting. We do a lot of helping people with like green coffee procurement. We're right now functioning as the director of coffee for 4 different companies. And yeah, there's just a lot of different things that go into our consulting. And then also we do a lot of roasting classes, which we've been partnering with San Franciscan, which we're really grateful for. We do all of our trainings on San Franciscan roasters. So we've had a lot of really great classes so far that have been filling up, which has been awesome, and a lot of positive feedback. We also do Q classes. Jodi is a Q instructor, which I'm sure she'll get into in a minute. So that is a big portion of kind of what we do. What Jodi's expertise and my expertise is in the sensory aspect of coffee. So that does come into play with our roasting classes. We definitely focus a lot on cupping. We believe that you can't be a great roaster if you're not a great cupper. So that is really what we hone in on as a company. But then also we believe that coffee is a very communal beverage. It brings people together, and that is what we both love about the coffee industry and what we're doing as a company. So we also invite like producers and farmers to come in and showcase their coffees to the Dallas community. We recently had a producer from El Salvador come in, and he was able to showcase like 12 different coffees and have roasters that have been interested in buying those coffees come, and new coffee roasters that hadn't even had his coffee before. And they were able to tell their story and tell us kind of what they're about, what their mission is. And those have been really, really cool experiences. And then we also do a good amount of roasting. We do some wholesale, some toll roasting. And yeah, those are basically the 4 branches of kind of what we do.
So you guys aren't busy at all, are you?
Yeah, it's kind of fun because every single day is a little bit different. So it's a lot of project management, which I love, and meeting new people every single day, and just kind of exploring what it's like to be super passionate about coffee and kind of, I mean, it's so contagious when you really get into it. So it's a lot of fun to see people's world light up when you kind of start getting into the nitty-gritty of the coffee world.
Well, I think that's so important. I mean, everybody loves the communal part of the coffee house and they but when you can go to a coffee house and you're meeting your friends and getting your social fix and everything, and then you take a drink of coffee and then you stop and you go, expletive, that is good, right? I'm sorry that this might be a family friendly podcast, so I decided not to say a bad word. But anyway, the thing is that when you're already having that experience, that human experience that everybody needs and craves, and then you have a sensory experience that kind of blows your doors off and kind of creates that interruption. Um, you remember that, and I think that's so important and such a necessary aspect of the coffee experience, at least of the specialty coffee experience, and I really appreciate that you guys are bringing that aspect into what you're doing. So so Jody, your turn.
Yeah. Just something really quickly, what you just said, in the last roasting class, almost everyone went around and described the first coffee that kind of blew their socks off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're right. Like as soon as you taste high-end specialty coffee, it's something that you remember always. And so everyone could remember the exact coffee, where they were, what it was. Yeah, kind of exciting. Um, and so that's what we're about. Like we want to provide a learning space for people here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area and for people to fly into um, and be part of some of the courses that we're offering. So
Well, that's good. I think Dallas is, I mean, so centrally located. I believe you can probably get a direct flight from just about any major airport uh, in the country to go to Dallas there. And you guys, your proximity to the airport is so close. It's pretty nice that way.
Yeah, just
yeah,
about 15 minutes or so. So we get a lot of people that come in from all over the United States to these classes, which is really cool.
The amazing downtown in Louisville there. That's just so. So you guys know, Jody and Abby took me and a couple of my family members to lunch, and they have good places to eat, and I really appreciate good places to eat. That makes me happy.
for sure.
So
Best
anyway,
tacos.
Jody, I'm and you go ahead and continue.
Okay. Um, so do you want some of my background?
So yeah, and then tell me, I mean, now I've known you the longest. We probably go back about 10, more than 10 years, I think.
For
And
sure.
just so everybody knows, Jody was the instructor when my wife and I uh, decided to spend a week in San Francisco, and it was going to be a getaway, and we could also get our Q grade. Uh, Turned out to be a massive Q grade intensive spirit experience, and not much of a getaway, just because of the way the Q grade uh, works. But I have to say, it's probably one of the greatest professional experiences I've had in specialty coffee ever. But anyway, enough about that and the Q grade. But Jody, tell us about how did you get into coffee, and then what did you do?
Yeah.
I mean, you had a pretty diverse experience getting into, uh, well, getting to the point where you're at now.
For sure. Okay, so my first dabble into coffee was when I was in high school. I worked at a little coffee shop in our little town that's not little anymore. Um, and that was where I learned how to pull a shot of espresso, steam milk, get the experience of working in a coffee shop. And that was in the mid 90s. So that was before Starbucks hit our town. And I could see, okay, this is something special and unique. People love to come to the coffee shop and just hang out. And it was just a very special place. Um, After college, I moved to California. So that was in Texas. I grew up in Texas. After college, I went to California to grad school. And I was dating someone there after grad school. And I was looking to stay in the area. Um, who's now my husband. But so I was looking for jobs in the area and I found an ad on Craigslist, two lines. It said international coffee consulting business. And then it was two lines. And the last line was must love coffee. And I was like, oof, I love coffee. This sounds interesting. So I scheduled an interview. I went in for the interview, lasted a couple of hours, and it turned out to be Will and Boot, who I didn't know at the time. But then I started going to coffee events and realized, oh, wow, I just landed a really cool job. And so that was in 2008.
Okay.
Um, and so it's funny because one of my good friends, Mokhtar, said, Willem doesn't just grow coffee, he grows people too. And so, and this isn't, you can learn about Willem Boot later, but um, it just, I didn't know what I didn't know. I had no idea that I really didn't know that much about coffee. So Willem took me on a journey. He taught me how to roast. And the first roaster that I roasted on was that 1 pound San Franciscan
Oh, yeah. Okay.
in Willem's garage. And so that was really the start of specialty coffee for me. And it has been a wild ride since then. But I just want to say this really quickly, that I remember the first time that San Franciscan had kind of an issue. Willem was out of the country and I was roasting on it. And I was like, oh no, what's happening to the roaster? And so I called up Coffee Purr and I talked to you.
Oh, yeah.
And you said, okay, put the phone up by the roaster and you listen to the motor and you're like, okay, I think I know what you need.
Crazy.
And you put the part in the mail and helped me like work through it. And I tell that story a lot because it goes to show just the care, the customer service, the attention that you have in running, and the knowledge in running San Franciscan. Yeah. So anyway, I got my first start on that little 1 pound San Franciscan. Yeah.
That is a sweet little roaster, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So, speaking on San Francisco, so yeah, again, I want you to talk about your journey with San Franciscan and why San Franciscan ended up being your chosen roaster there at roasting headquarters.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of reasons that we went with San Franciscan. I, for one, during my days at Boot, we had, I think, 10 different roasters and taught on all 10 different roasters. So I worked with Willem for almost 10 years. And it was consistently, I think, the easiest roaster to teach on because you increase the gas and you see the change in the drum. And it just, for me, I don't know, it was something that it was the first roaster that I learned to roast on, and it just clicked and made sense. And so I wanted to continue with that machine. I love the flavor profile that it produced. And then also I knew that I wanted to teach at RHQ. And so I wanted something that would be easy for people to understand as they get into roasting.
So, thank you for that. We do that on purpose. A little self plug there. I'm sorry. The but let's expand on some of the other directions that you guys are currently going in now. And you recently went on a trip to Kenya. Uh, I heard you didn't tell me. I had to see it on Instagram. Uh, yeah, what's your Instagram tag there? Is it RHQ at RHQ
Yeah, dash Dallas.
RHQ underscore Dallas.
underscore Dallas at give them a follow. So yeah, but tell us. I mean, why did you do that? I mean, why do you go to Origin? I mean,
Yeah.
what is the thing about that?
Yeah, so we went to Origin specifically this time. We went to Kenya. We had met the farmer actually here in Dallas. He came for 2 weeks to Dallas
Mm.
and hit up a lot of different companies. And so we had met the farmer, the producer, and he invited us to Kenya. And right now, we are serving as the director of coffee for a large roasting company. And so we wanted to bring coffee in from Kenya to roast at this facility. And so we went to Kenya for a few days. We saw 8 different farms, and I think
Wow.
3. It was fast and furious, but it was incredible. Going to Origin allows you to see the care, the attention, the work that goes into it. So by the time it gets in the cup, and if you're blown away, I mean, a lot of care and attention has gone into that. And it starts at Origin. It starts with the care of growing the cherries, but then also processing them and drying them, and storing them before they ship, before they export. But it was incredible. We got to plant a tree on a farm,
Okay.
a coffee tree. Yeah, Abby got to plant one.
Yeah.
So it was great. We saw the entire, from tree to cherry that was being uh, grown, and then we saw all the processing side as well.
Yeah, we were able to go to many different farms that were at different altitudes. So we were able to see every single stage of the growing process, which was really cool. Like I had never smelled a coffee blossom before. I've smelled it in the little kit, for the Q grade class, but it was really cool to be able to stop and smell the flowers and then kind of see when the coffee is just starting to grow, the cherries. And then yeah, the whole process throughout the entire seed to cup process. And then we were able to actually like taste some of the coffee on the farm that it was grown in, which was really cool. And then for this specific trip, we also we're partnering with this large company because they wanted to give a portion of um, the money that they were making off of this coffee. So they were going to be giving $1 back for every bag that they sold to an education foundation. So we were actually able to go and meet a good amount of the students that this money was going towards. And even just like talking to the producers and the farmers, um, able to understand like how big of an impact it makes when you purchase their coffee.
I was gonna say, I was gonna ask about your interactions with the people there. I mean, it's one thing to have the interactions with the coffee, um, but I've always said it's about the people, isn't it? Really? I mean, from that communal experience that we were talking about earlier on, but all the way down to the impact that it has on the people that where the coffee comes from to begin with, and all the myriad of steps in between. But yeah, tell us more about that, meeting the people and what's going on there.
Yeah, I think it gave us some real insight into the challenges that they have in growing coffee. It's easy to sit over here in a consuming country
Mhm.
and be totally disconnected, as far as understanding the challenges that a farmer might encounter at origin. And so, it allowed us to see, okay, growing different varietals, even though maybe it's a point lower in quality, it actually is better for the farm. It's actually more sustainable. So understanding some of that aspect instead of just demanding a certain score for a coffee, and but realizing, okay, it's actually better for the farm, it's better for the producer, it's better all around. If you go from an 87 point coffee to an 86, it allows for more sustainability. So I think going to Origin, your eyes are just opened, you get to meet people, it's relational all the way through.
Another thing that we got to see is we got to see what is it called?
Single farm, single farmer, single estate,
And then we
Okay.
also got to see smallholder. Oh no.
oh no.
Okay,
No.
just edit this out later. But
Yeah.
okay, we also got to go and see a co-op. So this
Yes.
is where multiple farmers from all within a 10-kilometer radius, even on just like their tiny little farms with just a few trees to a couple larger farms within that 10-kilometer radius. But
Mhm.
in the morning, they would pick their cherries and then put them in a bag and then walk however far it was to get to that co-op. So we would be at the
Okay.
co-op and watch all of these people coming in, lugging these big bags of cherries. And then they would come and dump their cherries out and kind of sort through the overripe and the underripe cherries. And then they would put it on the weigh station. So the cherries would get weighed and then they'd get a receipt. And once that coffee is purchased, they'll be able to get paid for how much coffee per pound that they were able to bring to this co-op for them to be able to sell. So it was really, really cool to see all of these different people coming together. And they, a lot of times, they live in a very communal living situations where if one farmer has a lot of goats, they'll bring their goat meat, and then other people will bring their vegetables for dinner, and they kind of all eat together. So we got to be a part of a couple of those meals, and it was really, really cool. It was definitely an experience of a lifetime.
That's awesome. You mentioned something about that I wanted to point out that here they bring their big bags of these cherries, but they're sorting and they're refining and they're making every time you pull out a green cherry, and just keep the right color red. Those are aspects of specialty coffee that you're just not going to get. Um, well, you're definitely not going to get that at a convenience store type of a thing. And a lot and or the canned coffees and those types of things that are typically machine harvested and all those sorts of things. The care, the human connection to what makes specialty is really it's incredibly involved, and really there are very few forms of agriculture and I can't even think of off the top of my head where that level of human interaction still exists in order to make sure that the coffee is a very high quality. Now, so you've told us kind of like what you're doing right now, and the teaching, the consulting, and the roasting and allowing for toll roasting. What is the future for roasting headquarters? I know you guys have been there. You're relatively new there, but yeah, what is your dream? What's your vision?
Yeah, I think um I feel like I'm living the dream right now. It's so exciting to finally have my own space. For a long time, I mean, I would say for nearly 10 years, I traveled from roastery to roastery, from lab to lab, teaching in
Yeah,
other people's space. And
right.
so it's a dream come true to be able to teach in my own space and roast in my own space. I think I've literally been in almost every lab in the world teaching Q classes or roasting classes. Um, so we've really designed the space for the optimal learning experience. We kind of have three different places within RHQ to be able to learn, cup, and roast. And so that's how we've designed our space. And so for the future of RHQ, we want to continue being a place where people can come interact with each other as far as understanding different roast profiles, cup profiles,
Mhm.
cup coffees from producers from different origins. So we have public cuppings coming up. Um, but yeah, we want to continue growing the course aspect, continue offering roasting classes and Q classes. Anything to add?
Um,
If
Okay, you have a person who comes in and says, I don't know, but like you, um, in the 90s, that was 30 years ago.
well, when you put it that way.
And someone comes in and says, I'm thinking about getting into coffee. What's your counsel? What do you want to tell them? The good and the bad and the ugly.
Yeah. It's funny because part of Abby's background, she's a nurse. And when she first said she wanted to get into coffee, I was like, but you have such a stable job. Don't do it.
There's no money in coffee.
Yeah. The margins are slim, but the passion is huge. And so I think that that's what I would tell people. Like, I've been in it, yeah, close to 30 years, and I love it. Like, I love the connection. But it is a ride. It has been a wild ride. Like, even now, we're at historical high coffee prices, green coffee prices. And so that's kind of rocking the boat, and it's going to shape the industry. Um, so I think if someone wants to get into coffee, just knowing the part that it could change, like it's constantly changing. How people pull a shot of espresso is different than when I started 30 years ago. And so
Yeah.
it takes, like someone that is okay with those changes. And but the good part is it I don't want to be in any other industry.
Right, right.
um, when I got into it, I heard, okay, once you get in, you never leave. And I do feel like there's some truth to that. Because you create this family. It is a, an amazing family. Like when you go to Expo every year, it feels like you're seeing family.
Mhm.
And so I love that part of it. So as far as, if someone's getting into coffee, kind of the first thing that I tell them is, if you get bored in one aspect of it, just go to another
Yeah,
part. Like
right,
there's
right.
so many facets in coffee. Something that you can never get bored with. It's a lifelong journey.
Yeah, it's like you don't get into coffee if you don't really, really love it. Coffee is a profession that's full of very passionate people. And even in our last roasting class, we kind of went around and everyone told their background, and everybody was coming from completely different backgrounds. It was actually, we were all kind of laughing about it, that coffee is like everybody's passion project. And or everybody's coming from a different background. And like Jody said, like Expo, Jody says it feels like summer camp, right? Like everybody's getting
Yeah,
back together and
yeah.
catching up with each other. And that's another exciting thing about what Jody does with the Q class is you have to come back and recalibrate.
Mm,
So we get to check in with all of the people every 3 years and kind of see where they're at, see how their jobs have changed or what they're doing in coffee has changed. And yeah, it's really cool. It's a very, very communal um, industry. So if you don't love people, coffee is not for you.
Yeah.
yeah, I will say there is room for introverts because I am one, and, uh,
Good.
maybe a high functioning introvert, but yes. But you mentioned Expo. Speaking of Expo, yes, it's coming up in April in Houston. And yes, San Francisco Roaster will be there. Little plug for us. Booth 731. And you guys are going to be visiting and sharing some of your coffees. And I encourage anybody watching this to come by our booth and also to see Abby and Jody when they're there and talk to them about roaster training and getting their cue. Again, I have to say that one of the most beneficial and professional growth exercises I went through was through going through the Q class. And I haven't recalibrated. I don't expect to be a professional Q grader, but I tell you what, um, it's nice to be able to get your cup and go and all that and go. Uh, chocolate and nuts and a little bit of raisin, a little spicy pepper and cinnamon and cloves, and and be right, and that's cool and it's
Yes.
fun, and uh, that's well. Anyway, that's a whole nother story. So anyway, it's gonna wrap it up here, but I wanted to thank you guys for coming on. And thank you for opening that space there in Dallas. I've been there. It's beautiful, and hoping to visit more frequently. And uh, really, really want to wish you guys the very best moving forward.
Thank
And
you. For having me,
yeah,
sir.
any last thing you want to add before we wrap up here?
Yeah, we're excited to see you at Expo. Excited to be in the San Franciscan booth. Yeah. So come on by, say hi. Reach out to us via email, Instagram, Facebook. We'd love to talk with you.
Yeah, Expo is a 15,000 member coffee house communal experience. It's it's a blast. It's a wild ride, and you learn that the coffee community is very tight, and you can have friends around the world, and it's good to see them again. And anyway, so all
Yeah.
right, you guys. Well, thank you, and we'll see you in Houston.
Okay.
Sounds
Sounds
good.
good.
All right.
Bye.